Hello everyone. Today we will talk about corporate governance. A corporation serves as a structure that enables various parties to contribute capital, expertise, and labor for mutual benefit. Investors or shareholders can earn profits without being involved in daily operations, while management oversees the company without needing to provide funding personally. Laws grant shareholders limited liability, allowing them to participate in corporate governance primarily through electing directors who have a legal obligation to represent shareholder interests. The board of directors plays a crucial role in corporate governance, responsible for establishing and approving policies that impact the corporation's long-term performance. This governance framework involves a relationship among shareholders, directors, and management, with directors tasked with monitoring and guiding management to protect shareholder interests. In recent years, concerns have arisen regarding the effectiveness of boards of directors. Critics argue that some inside board members prioritize personal gain, while outside directors may lack the knowledge or commitment needed for proper oversight. High-profile scandals, such as those involving Enron and WorldCom, have amplified these concerns, leading to public demand for greater accountability. As a result, there has been a shift toward more active and professional boards, moving away from the traditional roles that sometimes favored the interests of CEOs over shareholders. This evolution reflects a growing expectation for boards to take their responsibilities seriously and enhance corporate governance practices. Laws and standards regarding the responsibilities of boards of directors differ significantly across countries. For instance, in Ontario, Canada, board members must adhere to over 100 provincial and federal laws that govern director liability. In contrast, the United States lacks a uniform national standard, with requirements varying by state based on the corporate charter. Despite these differences, a global consensus is emerging on key responsibilities for boards. A study involving 200 directors from 8 countries revealed strong agreement on 5 primary responsibilities: setting corporate strategy, hiring and firing the CEO and top management, supervising management, approving resource use, and caring for shareholder interests. In the US, directors also need to ensure that corporations comply with state laws, particularly since many publicly traded companies are incorporated in Delaware, making its laws particularly influential. Directors are responsible for ensuring management adheres to various regulations, including those related to securities and conflicts of interest. They must balance the interests of diverse stakeholder groups while maintaining the corporation's functionality. Legally, boards are tasked with directing corporate affairs rather than managing them directly, and they are required to act with due care. Failure to do so can lead to personal liability for directors, which is a significant concern, especially given that many directors have faced lawsuits. This risk has led companies to invest in directors' and officers' liability insurance to attract potential board members. A 2008 global survey by McKinsey & Company highlighted how boards allocate their meeting time across various issues. The average time spent included 24% on strategy development and analysis, 24% on execution and approvals for mergers and acquisitions, 20% on performance management, 17% on governance and compliance, and 11% on talent management. This distribution reflects the priorities and focus areas of boards as they navigate their responsibilities. The board of directors plays a vital role in strategic management by fulfilling 3 fundamental tasks: monitoring, evaluating and influencing, and initiating and determining. Monitoring. The board's primary responsibility is to monitor the corporation's internal and external environments. Through its committees, the board stays informed about key developments that could impact the organization. This oversight ensures that management remains aware of potential issues or opportunities that may otherwise be overlooked. Effective monitoring is essential for the board to fulfill its fundamental duty of safeguarding the corporation's interests. Evaluating and influencing. Beyond monitoring, the board evaluates management's proposals, decisions, and actions. This involves scrutinizing strategies and providing constructive feedback. Boards that engage actively in this task not only assess management's plans, but also offer advice, suggest alternatives, and express agreements or disagreements. This evaluative function is crucial for refining strategies and ensuring that the organization remains aligned with its goals. Initiating and determining. The most proactive boards go a step further by initiating and determining the corporation's mission and strategic direction. This involves setting the overarching vision for the organization and outlining strategic options for management to pursue. While not all boards take on this role, those that do significantly shape the company's future and strategic priorities, demonstrating leadership and foresight in guiding the organization. The involvement of a board of directors in strategic management can be visualized along a continuum, ranging from low to high engagement. At one extreme are phantom boards that exhibit minimal involvement, often only stepping in during crises. In contrast, catalyst boards demonstrate a high degree of active participation, significantly influencing the strategic direction of the corporation. Research indicates that boards that are more actively engaged in strategic management correlate with improved financial performance and credit ratings. Active boards take their responsibilities seriously, focusing on monitoring, evaluating, and influencing management, as well as initiating strategic options. Although a significant majority of public corporations hold meetings to review company strategy, many boards still lack substantial influence in shaping these plans. A MC Kinsey & Company survey revealed that while 43% of directors felt they had a high influence in corporate value creation, a considerable portion reported only moderate or minimal involvement. The trend shows that boards are becoming increasingly active, with 64% of directors in a 2005 survey noting greater involvement in company performance and value creation compared to 5 years prior. This increase is particularly evident in larger and publicly held companies. Notable companies with actively participating boards include Target, Medtronic, and General Electric, which prioritize strategic discussions in their meetings. Conversely, smaller corporations tend to have less active boards, particularly in privately held companies where founders manage the business. In such scenarios, boards often serve merely as a formality, with family and friends dominating membership. However, as these companies grow and seek outside investment, the board's role becomes more critical, especially when ownership becomes more dispersed. If the board fails to adapt and increase its involvement, conflicts may arise between management and the interests of external shareholders. Thus, it is essential for boards to evolve from passive oversight to active strategic engagement as companies expand. The composition of boards in publicly owned corporations typically includes both inside and outside directors. Inside directors are usually executives employed by the corporation, while outside directors are not employees and may hold positions in other firms. While there is no definitive evidence linking a higher proportion of outside directors to improved financial performance, there is a growing trend in the US to increase the number of outsiders and reduce overall board size. On average, large US corporations have about 10 directors, with 80% being outside directors. Internationally, board structures vary. UK boards often feature an equal split between inside and outside directors. French boards tend to have more outsiders, and Japanese boards have a higher proportion of insiders. Research indicates a negative correlation between board size and profitability, suggesting smaller boards may be more effective. Proponents of including more outside directors argue that they are less biased and can evaluate management more objectively. This perspective aligns with the agency theory, which highlights potential conflicts of interest when management lacks significant ownership. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) mandates that a majority of directors on boards be independent outsiders and requires that key committees be composed entirely of outside members. Research supports the notion that boards with more outside directors prefer growth strategies, such as international expansion and innovation, while those with fewer outsiders may engage in less risky, short-term strategies. Additionally, firms with a higher number of outside directors are less likely to engage in illegal activities or face lawsuits, and family businesses with more outsiders tend to exhibit better governance and performance compared to those with fewer outside members. Agency theory is a principle in economics and corporate governance that addresses the potential conflicts of interest that can exist between individuals, agents, and the entities they represent. Principles. In the context of corporations, the theory suggests that problems can arise because the interests of the agents, such as top management, may not always align with the interests of the principals, such as shareholders. One of the key aspects of agency theory is the idea that agents may not always act in the best interests of the principals. This can happen for various reasons, such as differing risk preferences, information asymmetry, or diverging incentives. In the context you provided, the theory suggests that top management, as agents, may be less willing to bear responsibility for their decisions if they do not have a significant ownership stake in the corporation. When managers own a substantial amount of stock in the company, their interests become more closely aligned with those of the shareholders. This alignment can incentivize managers to make decisions that are in the best long-term interests of the company and its shareholders, as they have a personal stake in the company's performance. By highlighting the importance of aligning the interests of agents and principals, agency theory aims to provide insights into how corporate governance structures can be designed to mitigate conflicts of interest and ensure that managers act in the best interests of shareholders. Proponents of inside directors argue that they are generally more effective than outside directors due to their familiarity with the corporation and its goals. Stewardship theory suggests that long-tenured insiders, such as senior executives, are more likely to be invested in the company's success and longevity, rather than using it for personal gain. Critics of relying solely on outside directors point out that excluding insiders limits the board's ability to evaluate potential successors and consider diverse perspectives on management decisions. Additionally, outside directors often serve on multiple boards, which can dilute their effectiveness and commitment. On average, a board member of a U.S. Fortune 500 company serves on 3 boards, and research shows that firm performance tends to decline as the number of directorships increases. Currently, only 40% of U.S. boards impose limits on the number of other directorships a board member may hold. while 60% restrict the number of boards on which their CEO can serve. Critics of increasing the number of outside directors argue that the term outsider is often misleading, as some may not be truly objective. For instance, affiliated directors, who may serve as legal or insurance advisors or suppliers, can have conflicts of interest. Consequently, recent regulations have begun to exclude such individuals from U.S. corporate boards. Similarly, retired executive directors, such as former CEOs, may struggle to objectively evaluate current management due to their past roles. Family directors, who are descendants of founders and hold significant stock, may also prioritize personal agendas over corporate interests. The majority of outside directors are typically active or retired CEOs, COOs, or investors, with institutional investors increasingly influencing board dynamics due to their significant ownership stakes. Efforts are being made to diversify board membership, with a rise in the number of women and ethnic minorities on boards. As of 2006, 85% of Fortune 1000 companies had at least one woman director, and 76% included ethnic minorities. Additionally, globalization is prompting boards to include international directors, particularly in Europe. Compensation for outside directors in large U.S. corporations averages around $58,217 in cash and $75,499 in stock options, while those in smaller companies earn significantly less. Inside directors typically consist of top executives like the CEO and COO, and they usually do not receive additional compensation for their board duties. Lower-level employees are rarely included on boards. Co-determination, which involves including workers on corporate boards, has only recently emerged in the United States. Some companies, like Chrysler and United Airlines, have added employee representatives to their boards as part of union agreements or employee stock ownership plans. For instance, United Airlines workers accepted pay cuts in exchange for equity and board representation, while Chrysler granted a temporary board seat to the United Auto Workers Union during a financial crisis. However, this practice raises concerns about potential conflicts of interest, especially when an employee representative has access to confidential management information. In contrast, Europe has seen a growing acceptance of worker participation on boards without ownership stakes. Germany pioneered this approach in the 1950s with a two-tiered system where a supervisory board, elected by shareholders and employees, oversees corporate strategy, while a management board handles daily operations. Other Western European countries, like Sweden and Denmark, have adopted similar co-determination laws or established worker councils to collaborate with management. Okay, now interlocking directorates. CEOs often nominate executives from other firms to their own boards, creating interlocking directorates. A direct interlocking directorate occurs when two firms share a director, while an indirect interlock involves directors from different firms serving on the board of a third entity, such as a bank. Although U.S. laws, like the Clayton Act and the Banking Act of 1933, prohibit interlocks among competing companies, they remain prevalent, especially among large corporations. These interlocking relationships are common in major firms across the US, Japan, and Germany, as they facilitate access to valuable inside information and strategic expertise. For example, the venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins has a network of interlocked companies, known as a keiretsu, which enhances its investment strategy. Family-owned businesses, however, tend to avoid interlocks to maintain tighter control over corporate governance. Concerns arise when chairs of different corporations serve on each other's boards, as this can lead to potential collusion. In 2003, there were notable instances of such arrangements among major companies. While CEOs typically serve on only one additional board now, down from two, interlocking directorates can provide competitive advantages. Nonetheless, they face increasing scrutiny due to the risks associated with collusion. Overall, companies with well-established interlocks tend to perform better in competitive environments. Traditionally, CEOs have had significant control over board nominations, often selecting individuals who align with their views, leading to potentially passive boards. This is concerning given that the average U.S. board member serves for three-year terms, with only 7% of companies implementing term limits. Although 60% of U.S. boards and 58% of European boards have mandatory retirement ages, research shows that longer-serving directors are often associated with less effective boards. To counteract the CEO's influence, many corporations now utilize nominating committees, with 97% of large U.S. firms employing this practice compared to 60% in Europe. Staggered boards, where only a portion of directors are elected each year, are also common, seen as a way to ensure continuity and protect against hostile takeovers. However, this can hinder shareholder efforts to hold CEOs accountable, particularly when the CEO also serves as chair. Shareholder resolutions are increasingly advocating for annual elections of all board members. Effective directors are typically expected to challenge management, possess relevant expertise, and be available outside of meetings. A survey highlighted key desired traits in board members, including the willingness to challenge management 95%, special expertise 67%, and knowledge of global business issues 41%. In the U.S., the size of corporate boards is determined by a company's charter and bylaws, with most corporations enjoying significant discretion. The average large publicly held company has about 10 directors, while small private firms typically have 4 to 5. In comparison, average board sizes in other countries are Japan 14, non-Japan Asia 9, Germany 16, the UK 10, and France 11. Approximately 70% of top executives in U.S. publicly held companies serve as both chairman and CEO, a practice criticized for potential conflicts of interest. This dual role can undermine the board's ability to effectively oversee management, as the chairman's responsibilities include ensuring board performance and presiding over meetings. In contrast, countries like Germany and the Netherlands legally require the separation of these roles. Research on the impact of the combined chair-CEO position is mixed, but evidence suggests that stock prices and credit ratings decline following such announcements. Additionally, firms with a combined role may have a higher likelihood of fraudulent financial reporting when CEO stock options are absent. Supporters of combining the chairman and CEO roles often advocate for the establishment of a lead director, who is elected by outside directors to consult with the chair/CEO on board matters and coordinate the CEO's annual evaluation. This position, popular in the UK, is present in 96% of US companies with a combined chair/CEO role. The lead director's importance has grown, as 94% of U.S. boards held regular executive sessions without the CEO in 2006, up from 41% in 2002. However, there's a concern that unscrupulous chair-CEOs can manipulate board loyalty, Research suggests that increased board independence can lead to CEO ingratiation tactics. Long-tenured directors may exert social pressure on new members to conform, and even nominating committees often seek the CEO's approval for new board candidates. Effective boards typically rely on committees to conduct much of their work. While these committees don't usually have legal duties, they often act with the authority of the board between meetings. Common standing committees include Audit 100%, Compensation 99%, and Nominating 97%. The Executive Committee, composed of both inside and outside directors, can address urgent matters quickly and often hold significant authority. Most committees are now staffed primarily by outside directors, averaging 4 to 5 meetings annually, with audit committees meeting more frequently, averaging 9 meetings in 2006. In response to corporate scandals following 2000, the U.S. Congress enacted the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in June 2002 to enhance shareholder protection and improve board oversight. Key provisions include requiring all audit committee members to be independent, prohibiting loans to corporate officers, and establishing procedures for whistleblowers to report wrongdoing without fear of retaliation. The Act mandates that both the CEO and CFO certify financial information and bars auditors from providing both internal and external audit services to the same firm. Additionally, companies must identify a financial expert on their audit committee. Initially, compliance costs for large firms were around $8.5 million in 2004. But these expenses decreased to $1.5 million annually as processes improved. Companies like Pitney Bowes and Cisco reported significant savings through operational efficiencies. Enhanced disclosure requirements have led to more reliable financial statements, reducing manipulative practices like post-dating executive stock options. The SEC, following Sarbanes-Oxley, mandated that companies disclose whether they have a code of ethics for senior officers and required that audit, nominating, and compensation committees consist entirely of outside directors. The New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ reinforced these requirements, emphasizing the need for independent governance. Surveys indicated that directors are now dedicating more time to board activities, with a notable increase in outside directors possessing financial management experience, rising from 1% in 1998 to 10% in 2003. By 2006, 78% of Fortune 1000 boards required directors to own stock in the company, compared to lower rates in Europe and Asia. To aid investors in assessing corporate governance, various independent rating services, including Standard & Poor's, S&P, Moody's, Morningstar, the Corporate Library, Institutional Shareholder Services ISS, and Governance Metrics International GMI, have established criteria for evaluating firms. Business Week also publishes annual rankings of the best and worst boards of U.S. corporations. While firms like S&P and Moody's employ a comprehensive mix of research data and criteria, ISS and GMI have faced criticism for relying primarily on public records and simple checklists. The S&P Corporate Governance Scoring System focuses on 4 key areas: ownership structure and influence, financial stakeholder rights and relations, financial transparency and information disclosure, board structure and processes. Although S&P's scoring system is proprietary, independent research indicates that improving corporate governance from the lowest to the highest categories can nearly double a firm's chances of achieving an investment-grade credit rating. Some corporations are wary that new corporate governance requirements could hinder top management's effectiveness. Since the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, an increasing number of U.S. public companies have gone private. Additionally, many firms use multiple classes of stock to limit outside voting power. For instance, Comcast CEO Brian Roberts holds superstock, which constitutes only 0.4% of total shares but grants him 1/3 of the voting rights. The Investor Responsibility Research Center noted that 11.3% of monitored companies had multiple share classes in 2004, up from 7.5% in 1990. Some companies, including Google and Orbitz, have opted to become controlled companies if a single group holds over 50% of voting shares. This status exempts them from New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ rules requiring a majority of independent directors on the board and key committees. Governance expert Jay Lorsch warns that this trend allows majority shareholders to dominate minority shareholders. The role of the board of directors in corporate strategic management is expected to become increasingly active. While the composition and leadership structure of boards have not consistently correlated with financial performance, better governance is associated with higher credit ratings and stock prices. A McKinsey survey found that investors are willing to pay 16% more for stocks of companies known for good governance, believing it leads to better long-term performance, reduces risk, and is a strategic priority. Key trends in corporate governance, particularly in the US and the UK, include increased board involvement. Boards are becoming more engaged in shaping company strategy rather than just evaluating it. Active institutional investors, pension funds and mutual funds are exerting pressure on management for improved performance, aided by SEC requirements for mutual funds to disclose proxy votes. Shareholding requirements. There is a growing demand for directors and executives to own substantial stock, which leads to more rigorous evaluations of CEO performance. Rise of non-affiliated directors. The influence of outside directors is increasing as they take charge of CEO evaluations. Diversity on boards. There is a notable increase in the representation of women and minorities. Mandatory retirement ages. Boards are instituting retirement ages, typically around 70. Performance evaluations. Boards are assessing their overall performance and that of individual directors. Smaller boards. There is a trend towards smaller boards with members possessing specialized knowledge. Separation of leadership roles. Boards are splitting the combined chair, seal role or appointing lead outside directors. Elimination of anti-takeover defenses. Many boards are removing outdated defenses that entrench management, with 66 boards repealing staggered boards in 1 year. Global experience. As corporations expand globally, they seek board members with international expertise. Potential for shareholder nominations. Shareholders may eventually gain the ability to nominate board members, enhancing accountability. Balancing profitability and social responsibility. Boards are increasingly expected to address social issues like workforce diversity and environmental sustainability, reflecting broader societal expectations. The CEO typically leads the top management function, working alongside the COO, President, Executive Vice President, and Divisional Vice Presidents, while strategic management involves the entire organization. The board of directors primarily holds top management accountable for these efforts. Responsibilities of top management. Top management, especially the CEO, is focused on achieving corporate objectives through collaboration with others. Their role is multidimensional and centered on the overall welfare of the organization. Specific tasks vary based on the company's mission, objectives, strategies, and key activities, and responsibilities are often distributed among team members. Research shows that diverse top management teams, characterized by varied functional backgrounds, experiences, and tenure, are linked to improvements in market share and profitability. Additionally, teams with international experience are more likely to pursue growth strategies and innovation, particularly in uncertain environments. The CEO, with support from the management team, has two crucial responsibilities for effective strategic management. One, providing executive leadership and a clear strategic vision, and two, managing the strategic planning process. Okay, now we have executive leadership and strategic vision. Executive leadership involves directing activities to achieve corporate objectives, setting the tone for the entire organization. A strategic vision describes what the company can become and is typically outlined in the mission and vision statements. Top management is responsible for communicating this vision, which motivates the workforce and fosters a sense of mission. Successful CEOs are characterized by articulating a strategic vision. They envision the company's potential and inspire employees to see beyond their individual roles. For example, Louis Gerstner transformed IBM's business model from hardware to services. Setting a role model. CEOs embody the values and behaviors they expect from their teams, fostering trust and setting a clear example. Steve Ballmer's hands-on approach at Microsoft illustrated this commitment. Communicating high-performance standards. Effective leaders set challenging goals and empower employees, enhancing their belief in their capabilities. Ivan Seidenberg of Verizon exemplified this by involving key managers in strategic decisions and public representation. However, overconfidence in executive leaders can lead to hubris, where they ignore contrary information. Research indicates that overconfident CEOs are more likely to pursue mergers and acquisitions, often disregarding the risks, which can lead to shareholder value destruction. Managing the strategic planning process. As corporations increasingly adopt learning organization characteristics, strategic planning can originate from any part of the organization. A survey of 156 large firms found that in 2/3 of cases, strategies were proposed by business units and sent to headquarters for approval. However, successful strategic management relies on top management's encouragement and support. Top management typically initiates and manages the strategic planning process by either requesting proposals from business units or drafting an overall corporate plan for them to follow. Research indicates that bottom-up planning may work best in stable environments, while top-down planning is more suitable for turbulent conditions. Some organizations also use concurrent strategic planning, where all units create their plans after receiving the overall mission and objectives. Regardless of the approach, the board expects top management to ensure that all unit plans align with the corporate strategy. This involves evaluating and providing feedback on unit plans, requiring justification of objectives and strategies based on overall goals and available resources. Companies like Amazon, led by CEO Jeff Bezos, have continuous strategic planning meetings with senior management, whereas most large corporations conduct this process annually in off-site workshops. Many organizations employ a strategic planning staff to support both top management and business units, typically consisting of a small team led by a director of corporate development or chief strategy officer. Their key responsibilities include identifying and analyzing strategic issues and proposing alternatives to top management, facilitating the strategic planning process for business units.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.